One moment, a person is breathing, speaking, and making plans, and the next, everything stops. But Vedic wisdom teaches that the sudden death of the body is not the end of the soul. Its journey continues, carrying karma, desires, emotions, and unfinished experiences. Does the soul immediately realize what has happened? Does it remain near the body, and can sudden death affect its next destination? In this video, we will uncover 7 profound teachings about what happens to a soul after sudden death. Stay until the final lesson, because it reveals why the way a person dies may be less powerful than the consciousness they carried throughout life. Subscribe to Akashic Vedas and comment, "The soul is eternal," if you believe death is a doorway, not the end. Lesson 1. Sudden death ends the body, not the soul. The first truth Vedic wisdom asks us to understand is also the most comforting. Death may arrive suddenly for the body, but it never arrives for the soul. To the people left behind, sudden death feels like a violent interruption. A voice becomes silent, a chair becomes empty, and plans made only hours earlier remain unfinished. Because everything changes in a single moment, we naturally imagine that the person's entire existence has also been destroyed. But the Vedic tradition draws a powerful distinction between the body that can perish and the conscious self that cannot. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that the true self is never born and never dies. The body enters time, grows within time, and eventually disappears. But the Atman is not created when the body is born, nor destroyed when the heart stops beating. Therefore, whether death comes slowly or without warning, it changes the condition of the body, not the eternal nature of the soul. Imagine someone living inside a house when the walls suddenly collapse. The destruction of the house does not prove that the person inside has ceased to exist. In the same way, the physical body is the temporary dwelling through which the soul experiences the material world. Sudden death may close that dwelling without warning, but it cannot erase the one who was dwelling within it. According to the broader Hindu understanding, a human being possesses not only a physical body, but also a subtle body, the inner vehicle associated with the mind, impressions, desires, and karmic tendencies. When the physical body can no longer sustain life, the soul's connection with it ends, while the deeper impressions gathered through life remain part of the continuing journey. Wealth, position, possessions, and social identity are left behind, but karma and inner tendencies are not simply erased because death came unexpectedly. This is why sudden death should not automatically be interpreted as punishment, spiritual failure, or proof that a soul has been condemned. Human beings usually see only the final event. Karma concerns a far greater journey than one visible moment. We do not know the complete history of another soul, and Vedic wisdom does not give us permission to judge someone's entire destiny by the manner in which their body died. The real mystery is not whether the soul survives. The deeper mystery is what state of consciousness, desires, attachments, and karmic impressions it carries when the body is suddenly left behind. That inner condition becomes important because the soul does not continue its journey as an empty page. It carries the unseen consequences of how life was lived. So, when death comes without warning, the outer story may stop in the middle of a sentence. But the soul's story does not end there. The body has fallen silent, yet the traveler continues. And in the next lesson, we will explore one of the most haunting questions of all. Does the soul immediately understand that it has left the body? Lesson 2. The soul may not immediately understand what has happened. My beloved soul, sudden death creates a powerful question. If the body stops without warning, does the soul immediately realize that earthly life has ended? Vedic and later Hindu traditions do not describe every soul as having one identical experience. The transition may be peaceful for one soul, confusing for another, and almost immediate for someone whose consciousness is prepared and detached. The condition of the mind at death, the strength of worldly attachments, accumulated karma, and spiritual awareness may all influence how the transition is experienced. When death approaches slowly, a person may have time to recognize that the body is weakening, release certain attachments, remember the divine, and inwardly prepare to leave. Sudden death offers no such visible preparation. One moment, consciousness is functioning through the senses. The next, the physical instrument becomes silent. The change is so immediate that the subtle mind may still carry the momentum of the life that has just ended. Imagine waking suddenly in an unfamiliar place while still believing you are inside a dream. For several moments, the mind tries to connect the new surroundings with what it remembers. In a similar symbolic sense, a soul strongly identified with the body may initially remain connected to the impressions of its final experience. This does not necessarily mean it is permanently trapped. It means that the inner movement of consciousness may require time to adjust to a reality no longer experienced through the physical senses. Throughout life, most people say, "I am this body, this is my home, these are my possessions, these are my relationships." When that identity has been repeated for decades, the sudden loss of the body may not instantly remove every attachment. The physical connection ends, but impressions of love, fear, duty, pain, and unfinished intentions may remain within the subtle body. This is why some Hindu traditions describe an intermediate condition in which the departed consciousness gradually separates from its former earthly identity. However, we must speak carefully. These teachings are spiritual descriptions, not scientific measurements, and no human being should claim to know exactly what every departed soul sees or feels. Vedic wisdom gives us principles for understanding the journey, but the precise experience remains connected to the mystery of individual karma. A spiritually prepared person may experience this transition differently. Someone who spent life contemplating the eternal self, practicing detachment, remembering the divine, and understanding that the body is temporary, may recognize the change with greater clarity. For such a person, death is not the destruction of identity, but the removal of a garment that was never permanent. But a soul deeply attached to people, possessions, status, or an unfinished purpose may continue carrying those impressions. It may be drawn toward the life it knew, not because love itself is a punishment, but because attachment resists change. There is a profound difference between loving someone and believing that existence is impossible without them. Love can bless the journey, while desperate attachment can make release more difficult. This also explains why the living are encouraged to respond to death with prayer, sacred remembrance, compassion, and inner calm. Grief is natural, and no one should feel guilty for crying. Yet constant calling, panic, blame, and refusal to accept the death may deepen the emotional atmosphere surrounding the loss. Peaceful prayers and sincere blessings express a different message. You are loved, you are not forgotten, but you may continue your journey. The most important truth is that temporary confusion should never be mistaken for eternal imprisonment. Sudden death may interrupt the body's story, but it does not remove the deeper order of karma or the guidance of divine law. The soul is not abandoned merely because its departure was unexpected. Eventually, the reality of separation becomes clear, and the soul is drawn onward according to its consciousness and karmic condition. But before that onward movement, another mystery arises. Can the departed soul remain near the body, the home, or the people it loved? That is what we will uncover in the next lesson. Lesson 3. Powerful attachments may keep the soul near its former life. After sudden death, one of the most haunting questions for the living is whether the departed soul remains close to its body, home, or loved ones. Vedic and later Hindu traditions approach this mystery carefully. They do not teach that every soul stays behind, nor that every unexplained sound or dream is a message from the dead. They suggest that consciousness may briefly remain connected to the impressions of earthly life. especially when death occurs unexpectedly and powerful attachments are left unresolved. A person who dies suddenly may leave this world while carrying strong emotional momentum. Moments earlier, the mind may have been thinking about children, responsibilities, promises, fears, possessions, or plans for tomorrow. The physical body stops, but the subtle impressions created through years of thought and attachment do not necessarily disappear in the same instant. Like a wheel that continues turning briefly after the force moving it has been removed, the subtle mind may continue following the direction in which it was already moving. This does not mean the soul is physically wandering through rooms like a visible human being. The body and its senses have been left behind. Instead, spiritual traditions describe a subtler connection. Consciousness may remain drawn toward the people, places, and concerns with which it's strongly identified. The attraction is not created by distance, but by attachment. A soul may be thousands of miles from its birthplace and still carry its deepest impressions because the true bond exists within consciousness. Imagine a person being forced to leave a home without warning. The door closes before they can say goodbye, complete their work, or understand why they must go. Their first impulse may be to turn back toward everything left unfinished. Sudden death can be understood symbolically in the same way. The soul's journey has changed, yet the subtle mind may still be facing the life it knew. Love can be one of the strongest connections. A parent may leave while worrying about a child. A husband or wife may depart without speaking final words. Someone may carry regret over an apology never offered or affection never expressed. Such impressions can create a powerful inward pull. Yet Vedic wisdom distinguishes pure love from possessive attachment. Pure love wishes peace and freedom for the beloved, while attachment cries, "You belong to me, and neither of us may move forward." This is why the response of the living matters, not because grief can control the destiny of the dead, but because the emotional atmosphere surrounding death can either express peace or intensify attachment. Crying is natural. Missing someone is natural. Vedic wisdom never requires the heart to become cold, but grief becomes spiritually heavier when it turns into constant refusal. "You cannot leave. Come back. I will never release you." Prayer offers a more compassionate message. "I love you, I remember you, and I pray that you continue toward peace." Traditional rites following death serve this deeper purpose. Sacred remembrance, offerings, prayers, and the calm participation of family members acknowledge that the departed person is no longer merely the identity they held on earth. These practices help the living accept the transition while symbolically supporting the soul's onward movement. The ritual is not magic that mechanically purchases a destination. It is an expression of duty, gratitude, remembrance, and release. It is also important not to mistake every dream, coincidence, or emotional sensation for proof that a soul is trapped nearby. Grief changes the mind. Memories can become unusually vivid, familiar scents can awaken suddenly, and dreams may recreate a loved one with astonishing realism. Some traditions allow the possibility of meaningful contact, but wisdom requires humility. We should not frighten ourselves by turning every unusual experience into a supernatural certainty. If a departed person appears peacefully in a dream, there is no need to respond with terror. The dream may arise from memory, grief, spiritual symbolism, or something the mind cannot fully explain. Its healthiest meaning may simply be an invitation to pray, forgive, express gratitude, and release what remains unfinished within our own hearts. Vedic wisdom does not encourage obsession with calling the departed back. It directs attention toward peace, duty, and the soul's continuing journey. The same principle applies to the physical body. Once consciousness has departed, the body deserves respect because it served as the soul's temporary instrument. But the body is not the person in their eternal essence. Holding on to it cannot stop change, just as clinging to an empty garment cannot bring back the one who wore it. The deepest honor we can offer the departed is not endless attachment to their physical form, but sincere remembrance of the goodness they brought into our lives. Most importantly, remaining emotionally connected to earthly life does not mean a soul will stay there forever. Karma continues to operate. The impressions that pull consciousness backward are gradually met by stronger forces drawing it onward. The soul is not forgotten, abandoned, or left outside the order of existence merely because death came suddenly. Therefore, if someone you love departed without warning, do not imagine them condemned to endless confusion. Remember them with affection, perform sincere prayers according to your tradition, fulfill any rightful duties they left behind, and release them with peace. You may say within your heart, "Your body has completed its journey with us. May your soul move forward without fear. May the divine guide you toward the destination shaped by truth, grace, and karma." But if attachments can pull a soul toward the life it has left, what happens to its unfulfilled desires, broken promises, and unfinished responsibilities? Do they disappear at death or travel forward as seeds of future karma? That deeper mystery awaits us in the next lesson. Lesson 4. Unfinished desires do not die with the body. My beloved soul, sudden death can stop a heartbeat, silence a voice, and leave a human life visibly incomplete, but it does not automatically erase the desires, emotions, and karmic impressions that were living within that person. A person may depart while carrying an apology never spoken, a responsibility never fulfilled, a dream never completed, or a fear never overcome. A parent may leave while deeply concerned about a child. Someone may die while holding anger toward a relative, longing for a person they loved, or struggling to protect something they believed belonged to them. To the living, these unfinished matters remain behind as painful reminders. But Vedic and later Hindu wisdom asks a deeper question: what happens to the inner force behind those unfinished experiences? The physical action may end, but the impression created by it can remain. Throughout life, every repeated thought, emotion, choice, and intention leaves a subtle mark upon the mind. These impressions are often described as samskaras. When many impressions gather around a powerful desire, they form tendencies that continue shaping consciousness. This is why two people can face the same situation but respond very differently. Each person is looking at the present through patterns formed by the past. Death does not necessarily wash these patterns away. If it did, karma would lose all continuity, spiritual growth would become meaningless, and every soul would leave the body in exactly the same condition. But Vedic thought presents life as a continuing education of consciousness. The soul does not merely move from one body to another. It carries subtle tendencies that influence what it seeks, fears, loves, avoids, and must eventually learn. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that the state of consciousness remembered at death influences the soul's onward movement. This does not mean that one accidental thought in the final second mechanically decides an entire destiny. The final state of mind is often the concentrated result of how consciousness has been shaped throughout life. What we repeatedly love, fear, worship, desire, and identify with becomes deeply rooted within us. In a sudden death, the mind may have no opportunity to deliberately redirect itself. Its strongest inner momentum may therefore become especially significant. Imagine a river flowing rapidly toward the sea. If a bridge above that river suddenly collapses, the water does not stop moving. It continues in the direction created by its accumulated current. In the same way, when the physical body suddenly fails, the current of consciousness does not become empty. It continues carrying the momentum developed through years of choices, habits, attachments, and intentions. This is why an unfinished desire is more than an incomplete task. A task belongs to the external world, but desire is an inward movement. Someone may die before building a house, yet the unfinished house alone does not bind the soul. The deeper question is whether the person's entire identity had become attached to possessing it. Another person may leave behind a great project without being inwardly bound to it because they worked with sincerity but accepted that results were never fully under their control. Vedic wisdom therefore distinguishes between action and attachment to action. We must act, love, serve, create, protect, and fulfill our duties, but we are warned not to make the temporary outcome the foundation of our eternal identity. When attachment becomes intense, consciousness begins to say, "I cannot be complete unless this happens. I cannot have peace unless this person remains mine. I cannot release this world until this desire is fulfilled." That inner insistence becomes a chain. Sudden death may expose such chains because there is no gradual period in which the person can resolve them outwardly. However, this does not mean every unfinished responsibility condemns a soul to wander near the earth. Human beings rarely leave life with every conversation completed, every debt repaid, and every relationship perfectly healed. If ordinary incompleteness permanently trapped the soul, almost no one could continue onward. The decisive factor is not simply what remained unfinished outside the person, but how deeply it had taken possession of the consciousness within. A loving parent may die while still wanting to protect a child. That love does not automatically become bondage. If it was selfless love, it may remain as a blessing rather than a chain. But if the attachment was filled with fear, control, and the belief that the child could not live without them, the inner struggle to release may be stronger. In the same way, wealth is not automatically spiritually dangerous. Yet if a person spent life believing, "This wealth is who I am, and no one else must possess it," death may separate the hands from the property, while the subtle mind continues clinging to the idea of ownership. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad connects desire with will, action, and consequence. In simple terms, what a person deeply desires influences what they pursue. Repeated pursuit creates action, and action creates results that shape the continuing journey. Desire is therefore not a small emotion floating through the mind. It can become an architect of destiny. This is especially important when death comes suddenly. The person may have no time to speak final words, ask forgiveness, return what was taken, or surrender a long-held obsession. But divine law does not become confused because a human life ended unexpectedly. Karma is not limited to the paperwork of one lifetime. The outer act may remain incomplete, while its inner intention and consequence continue within the greater journey of the soul. Suppose someone sincerely planned to repair the harm they had caused, but died before doing so. Their intention matters, even though it does not erase the pain experienced by others. Now suppose another person knowingly caused harm and felt no remorse. Their unfinished action carries a different inner quality. Human beings may see only that neither person completed the repair, but karma is understood to include intention, awareness, motivation, and the condition of the heart, not merely the visible result. This is why we should never claim to know the precise destination of someone who died suddenly. We may know their public actions, but we do not know every silent regret, private prayer, hidden act of kindness, or final movement of consciousness. A person who appeared spiritually lost may have experienced a profound inward surrender that no one witnessed. Another person who appeared virtuous may have carried attachments known only to themselves. The complete karmic account is not available to ordinary human judgment. Unfulfilled desire may continue in several ways. It may remain as a subtle attraction, drawing consciousness toward conditions in which that desire can be experienced again. It may return as a tendency in another life, a fear with no obvious origin, a powerful attraction to a certain path, an unusual ability, or a repeating emotional pattern. It may also become part of a karmic lesson that requires the soul to understand the deeper truth hidden beneath the desire. A person obsessed with control may enter circumstances that teach surrender. Someone who misused power may experience dependence so they can understand humility. A soul that clung desperately to possessions may be placed in conditions where inner worth must be discovered without material security. These should not be interpreted as simple punishments. Karma is deeper than human revenge. It is a law through which action produces experience, and experience can awaken understanding. Yet not every desire requires another physical birth in a simplistic, one-to-one manner. Spiritual traditions describe a far more complex interaction of accumulated karma, dominant tendencies, divine order, and the soul's level of awareness. We should avoid claiming that one unfinished wish automatically produces one exact future event. Karma is not a vending machine, and the soul's journey cannot be reduced to a formula. What matters is the general principle. What consciousness refuses to release, it may be required to meet again. This is why spiritual practice during life is so important. Many people imagine preparation for death as something to begin when old age arrives. But sudden death reminds us that spiritual preparation is not a final ceremony. It is a way of living now. Every day we practice truth, forgiveness, detachment, devotion, and selfless action. We reduce the number of chains consciousness carries. If you need to apologize, do not build your future around the assumption that you will always have another day. If you owe someone honesty, speak before silence is forced upon you. If wealth has become your identity, begin using it in service. If anger has lived in your heart for years, do not treat resentment as though it were permanent justice. If you love someone, express that love without trying to possess their destiny. To prepare the soul is not to become frightened of death. It is to stop postponing the purification of life. The living may also help by completing rightful duties left behind by the deceased. If a debt is known, the family may try to settle it. If a promise can ethically be fulfilled, they may honor it. If conflict remains, forgiveness can be offered within the heart. These actions should not be performed from terror, as though one mistake will condemn the departed. They are expressions of Dharma, ways of restoring harmony where sudden death created visible incompleteness, but there are limits. The living cannot fulfill every private desire of the deceased, and they should not destroy their own lives trying to do so. If a person had unhealthy demands, harmful ambitions, or possessive expectations, continuing those patterns does not create spiritual peace. Dharma requires wisdom, not blind obedience. We honor a departed soul by completing what was righteous, healing what can be healed, and refusing to continue what caused suffering. Prayer and sacred remembrance can also become acts of release. Rather than repeatedly calling the departed back, the family may inwardly say, "Whatever remained unfinished, may it be placed within divine order. Whatever pain existed between us, may forgiveness begin. Whatever love was pure, may it remain as a blessing. Whatever attachment caused suffering, may it now be released." These words do not give human beings control over the soul's destination. They change the emotional quality of remembrance. They transform grief from desperate possession into compassionate surrender. It is equally important to understand that the living may carry unfinished karma of their own after someone dies suddenly. We often focus entirely on what the departed person left incomplete, but survivors may be haunted by guilt. Why did I not call? Why did I speak harshly? Why was I absent? Why did I not notice what was coming? The mind begins rewriting the past as though it possessed knowledge that was unavailable at the time. Remorse can guide us toward growth, but endless self-punishment serves neither the living nor the dead. If you genuinely caused harm, acknowledge it. Seek forgiveness through sincere prayer. Change your behavior and perform good actions in remembrance of the person. Let regret become responsibility. But if you are blaming yourself for circumstances you could not control, understand that love does not require you to remain imprisoned forever. Sometimes the most sacred promise we can make to someone who died suddenly is not, "I will never move forward." It is, "I will live more consciously because your departure taught me how uncertain life is." Their unfinished words can inspire us to speak truth. Their interrupted plans can remind us to use time wisely. Their absence can awaken gratitude for those still present. In this way, sudden death does not have the final word. The living can transform pain into dharma, compassion, and spiritual maturity for the soul itself. Unfinished desire is neither an eternal curse nor proof of abandonment. It is a form of momentum. Momentum may continue, but it can also be exhausted, understood, purified, or transcended. The eternal self remains greater than every temporary desire it carries. Just as clouds may cover the sky without becoming the sky, karmic impressions may cover awareness without changing the soul's deepest nature. The ultimate purpose of spiritual life is therefore not to fulfill every desire before death. That would be impossible, because satisfying one desire often gives birth to another. The deeper purpose is to recognize that no temporary achievement, possession, or relationship can complete what is eternal within us. When this understanding matures, desire loses its power to command the soul. A person who lives with this awareness may still have responsibilities and dreams, but they hold them differently. They act fully without believing that their existence depends upon the outcome. They love deeply without turning love into ownership. They prepare for tomorrow without assuming tomorrow is promised. And when change arrives, even suddenly, their consciousness is less burdened by resistance. Sudden death may leave the outer life unfinished, but Vedic wisdom teaches that the soul's education continues. Its deepest desires, karmic tendencies, and unlearned lessons do not vanish. They move within a greater order that extends beyond one visible lifetime. The body may leave behind an unfinished story, yet consciousness carries the seeds from which another chapter may eventually grow. But if unfinished desires travel forward, what determines where the soul goes immediately after leaving the body? Is it drawn by its final thought, its accumulated karma, or a force beyond human understanding? In the next lesson, we will uncover how karma and consciousness begin guiding the soul toward its next destination. Lesson 5. Karma and consciousness guide the soul toward its next destination. My beloved soul, when death comes suddenly, the body may stop in a single moment, but the forces shaping the soul's journey were not created in that moment. They were being formed quietly throughout the person's entire life. Every choice, intention, attachment, act of kindness, moment of cruelty, repeated fear, and spiritual realization helped shape an invisible direction within consciousness. Sudden death may interrupt the outer life without warning, but it does not erase that inner direction. According to Vedic and later Hindu teachings, the departed soul is not sent onward by random chance. It is carried by the combined momentum of karma, consciousness, desire, and the subtle tendencies developed through many experiences. This is one of the deepest truths we must understand. Death does not suddenly make every soul identical. Two people may leave their bodies through similar circumstances, yet their inner conditions may be completely different. One may have lived with compassion, devotion, humility, and growing detachment. Another may have spent life controlled by hatred, deception, greed, and obsession. The physical event may look the same to human eyes, but the consciousness traveling beyond that event does not carry the same qualities. The manner of death is visible, the condition of the soul is not. This is why we must never judge someone's spiritual destination merely because their death was sudden, violent, accidental, or unexpected. Human beings tend to look at the final scene and assume it explains the whole journey. But one moment cannot reveal every intention, sacrifice, hidden struggle, prayer, or karmic tendency carried by a person. Sudden death describes how the body's life ended. It does not, by itself, reveal the worth of the soul or the destination awaiting it. To understand what guides the soul, imagine an arrow traveling through the air. Once released, it continues in the direction determined by the force, angle, and intention behind it. The final instant of its flight matters. but that instant did not create its entire path. In the same way, the state of consciousness at death is significant, yet that state is usually the result of everything repeatedly practiced before death. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that whatever state of being occupies consciousness at the time of death influences what follows. But this teaching should not be reduced to a frightening superstition, as though one random thought appearing in an unexpected final second cancels an entire lifetime. The deeper meaning is that the mind naturally turns toward what has become strongest within it. A person who has spent years worshipping wealth may instinctively turn toward wealth. Someone who has lived in resentment may remain absorbed in resentment. A person who has cultivated remembrance of the divine may turn toward the divine even when the body is failing. At the final threshold, the mind often reveals the direction it has secretly been practicing all along. Consider what happens during ordinary moments of crisis. When a person is frightened, they do not usually invent an entirely new character. They fall back upon their deepest habits. One person becomes calm and prayerful, another becomes angry, another thinks only of saving themselves, another risks their life to protect a stranger. Crisis exposes what repeated choices have placed within the heart. Sudden death may offer no visible time to prepare, but the life already lived has been the preparation. Every day, consciousness is rehearsing how it will respond when control is taken away. Every time we choose truth over convenience, forgiveness over revenge, service over selfishness, or remembrance over distraction, we are shaping the direction of the inner being. In the same way, every time we willingly strengthen greed, hatred, cruelty, or deception, we deepen patterns that do not automatically disappear when the body stops. This is where karma becomes essential. Karma is often misunderstood as a system of instant reward and punishment. People say, something painful happened, so this person must have done something bad. Or, this person is successful, so they must have good karma. Such judgments oversimplify a teaching that is far more subtle. Karma does not mean that every visible event can be traced to one obvious action. It refers to the moral and spiritual continuity through which actions, intentions, and tendencies produce consequences across a much greater field of experience. An action does not end when the movement of the body ends. It leaves an impression upon the person who performed it, affects other beings, and sets consequences into motion. If someone repeatedly lies, the karma is not limited to whether they are caught. The habit of lying reshapes their consciousness. It weakens their relationship with truth, teaches the mind to hide, and creates fear of exposure. Even if the world praises them, something within has already been altered. In the same way, an act of compassion may change far more than the visible situation. A person who repeatedly serves others begins weakening the prison of selfishness. Their inner world becomes capable of recognizing another being's suffering as meaningful. Even if no one rewards them, consciousness has been shaped. Therefore, karma is not merely what happens to us. Karma is also what our actions gradually make us become. When sudden death occurs, possessions remain behind, social titles disappear, and the physical brain can no longer continue its functions. But within the spiritual framework of these traditions, the subtle results of a person's actions do not vanish. They remain as tendencies, impressions, and unresolved consequences carried within the continuing stream of consciousness. Imagine entering another country where none of your previous titles are recognized. Your house, job, clothing, and public reputation do not accompany you, yet your education, habits, fears, and character still influence how you behave. Death is described as an even more complete separation. The soul does not take its bank account, physical appearance, or earthly authority, but it does not leave as though nothing ever happened. What it has inwardly become continues to matter. This is why a wealthy person and a poor person may appear completely different in society, yet stand before death with no advantage based on possession alone. Wealth can be used for service, healing, generosity, and dharma, or it can strengthen arrogance and attachment. Poverty can awaken humility and compassion, or it can become a source of bitterness and harmful action. The external condition does not tell us the complete karmic truth. The decisive question is what consciousness did with the condition it received. The same is true of suffering. A painful life is not proof that someone is spiritually inferior, just as a comfortable life is not proof of spiritual greatness. Suffering can sometimes awaken wisdom, but it can also overwhelm a person. Comfort can create gratitude and generosity, but it can also deepen carelessness. Karma is not understood merely through what enters a person's life. It is also shaped by how they respond. At death, the soul is therefore not guided by a superficial list of achievements. It is guided by the deeper quality of consciousness those experiences created. Did love become selfless, or did it become possession? Did success become service, or did it become pride? Did pain become compassion, or did it become cruelty? Did knowledge become wisdom, or did it become arrogance? Did religious practice purify the heart, or did it become another identity through which the person judged others? These are not questions for condemning the departed. They are mirrors for the living. A person may have appeared ordinary to the world while silently developing extraordinary inner strength. Someone may have cared for a sick relative for years without recognition. Someone may have forgiven an enemy despite deep pain. Someone may have shared their limited food, protected a vulnerable person, or prayed privately when no one was watching. The world may never build a monument for such actions, but Vedic thought suggests that no sincere transformation of consciousness is spiritually wasted. Likewise, a person may have appeared impressive while secretly feeding destructive tendencies. Public praise cannot purify private intention. A religious title cannot replace compassion. A sacred appearance cannot hide cruelty from the consciousness in which that cruelty has been planted. Death removes many outer disguises because the soul cannot carry a reputation in place of its actual inner condition. Sudden death makes this truth especially powerful. A person may have believed there would always be more time to change. They may have planned to forgive later, pray later, return what they had taken later, or free themselves from an obsession later. But when death arrives unexpectedly, all postponed intentions are confronted by a simple reality. Consciousness leaves carrying what has truly been cultivated, not merely what it planned to cultivate someday. This does not mean sincere intention has no value. Intention is itself part of karma. A person struggling honestly to overcome anger is not spiritually identical to someone who celebrates cruelty, even if both sometimes fail. Someone who recognizes their wrongdoing and genuinely wishes to repair it has already begun changing their inner direction. Perfection may not have been reached, but movement has begun. Karma includes not only the outer action, but also the intention, awareness, and inner response surrounding it. Accidentally causing harm is not the same as deliberately causing harm. Giving charity for praise is not inwardly identical to giving from compassion. Remaining silent because of fear is different from remaining silent because one approves of injustice. Human beings often see the same outward behavior, but the inward karmic quality may be very different. This is another reason we cannot declare exactly where a departed soul has gone. We do not possess complete knowledge of the person's interior life. We may remember their mistakes, yet not know the remorse they carried. We may praise their public goodness, yet not know the pride hidden beneath it. The soul's journey involves a depth of truth beyond ordinary human observation. Within broader Hindu philosophy, karma is often discussed in different dimensions. There is the vast store of accumulated karma, the portion already producing the circumstances of the present life, and the new karma being created through current action. Different traditions explain these categories in different ways, but the central insight remains consistent. Not every karmic seed produces its result at once. Some seeds require particular conditions before they can grow. A seed may remain beneath dry soil for a long time, appearing lifeless. When rain finally arrives, it begins to open. In the same way, a karmic tendency may remain hidden until circumstances allow it to become active. Death does not necessarily destroy such seeds. It may change the field in which they will eventually bear fruit. This does not mean every future experience is rigidly predetermined. If everything were completely fixed, spiritual practice, moral responsibility, and conscious transformation would have no meaning. Vedic teachings generally present a more complex relationship between past momentum and present choice. Previous karma may shape the field into which a person is born, but how consciousness responds within that field creates further direction. A person may be born with a tendency toward anger, but that tendency does not force them to become cruel. Through discipline, self-awareness, devotion, and wise guidance, they may transform it into courage. Another may carry fear, but gradually turn it into compassion for those who suffer. Karma creates powerful inclinations and circumstances, yet awareness can change how those forces are expressed. The soul's destination after death should therefore not be imagined as a judge selecting a random door. It is more like consciousness being drawn toward a condition that corresponds with its dominant qualities and unresolved karma. Water naturally flows toward a lower level. Iron is drawn toward a magnet. A mind filled with a particular desire notices opportunities connected to that desire. In a similar spiritual sense, the soul is said to move according to the qualities it has cultivated. Its own consciousness becomes part of the force guiding it. The Upanishadic traditions speak of paths connected with knowledge, action, spiritual realization, and return. Later Hindu teachings describe various realms or lokas, not necessarily as permanent heavens and hells in the simplest sense, but as states or planes in which particular karmic results may be experienced. Interpretations differ widely, and these descriptions should not be presented as if they were scientifically mapped locations. Their spiritual message is that consciousness does not encounter the same condition regardless of how life was lived. A life devoted to truth does not lead in the same inward direction as a life devoted to deliberate harm. A consciousness filled with selfless devotion does not carry the same momentum as one consumed by hatred. The universe described by these traditions is morally meaningful. Actions shape the actor, and what the soul has become influences what it can experience next. Yet karma should never be separated from compassion. When someone dies suddenly, it is cruel to look at the grieving family and say, "This happened because of bad karma." Such statements are not expressions of wisdom. They are attempts to explain a mystery using knowledge we do not possess. Even within karmic traditions, no ordinary person can calculate the full chain of causes behind a specific tragedy. A sudden death may involve physical conditions, human choices, natural events, collective circumstances, or countless causes beyond our understanding. Karma does not give us permission to blame the victim. It asks us to live responsibly because our actions matter, while remaining humble about what we cannot know. There is also a danger in believing that a violent death automatically produces a violent spiritual destination. The shock surrounding the death may affect the transition described by certain traditions, but the event itself does not erase a lifetime of goodness. A compassionate person who dies in an accident does not suddenly become spiritually corrupt. A devoted soul killed through another person's wrongdoing does not inherit the moral guilt of the one who caused the harm. The karma of the act belongs primarily to the one who knowingly performed it. The suffering experienced by the victim is real, but it should not be turned into evidence against their soul. Suppose a person spends decades serving others and then dies unexpectedly during a moment of fear. Would one frightened instant destroy the spiritual tendencies developed through years of devotion? The deeper teaching suggests otherwise. That fear may be part of the final experience, but it exists within a much larger field of consciousness. The soul carries more than the last visible emotion. In the same way, someone should not assume that calmly speaking sacred words at death automatically erases a lifetime of deliberate cruelty without genuine transformation. Sacred remembrance has profound spiritual power, but its deepest power is not mechanical. Words become transformative when they reflect surrender, realization, or sincere turning of the heart. The final moment matters because it may reveal or concentrate the direction of a lifetime. It is not a loophole through which truth can be deceived. For a person who dies suddenly, there may be no opportunity to consciously recite a mantra, receive final teachings, or say goodbye. This can cause great anxiety in the family. They may fear the person was not prepared, they did not remember the divine, they did not complete the proper final act. But divine order cannot depend entirely upon whether the human mind had time to complete a ceremony. Rituals, prayers, and sacred remembrance are meaningful because they align consciousness with truth, gratitude, and surrender. Yet the eternal law is not so fragile that an unexpected accident makes justice impossible. The life the person lived, the intentions they cultivated, their spiritual tendencies, and the prayers offered for them all belong to a mystery larger than the final seconds visible to witnesses. This is why the living are encouraged to pray without pretending they can control the result. Prayer is not an attempt to bribe the universe into ignoring karma. It is an offering of love, clarity, merit, and surrender. It expresses the wish that confusion be removed, attachments be loosened, and the departed consciousness be guided toward peace and a fitting destination. Traditional acts of charity performed in remembrance of the dead can carry the same spirit. Feeding someone who is hungry, helping a vulnerable family, supporting sacred learning, protecting animals, planting a tree, or serving the community can transform grief into beneficial action. Different traditions interpret how merit relates to the departed in different ways, but these acts unquestionably shape the consciousness of the living and honor the memory of the person through Dharma. Instead of allowing death to create only despair, the family allows love to continue as service. However, service should never become a transaction rooted in terror. A family should not be manipulated into believing that expensive ceremonies guarantee liberation, or that failure to perform one exact act will condemn the soul forever. Genuine spiritual traditions emphasize sincerity, duty, remembrance, and purity of intention. Wealth cannot purchase moksha, and fear should not be exploited in the name of the dead. The soul's destination is connected to a far deeper reality than social display. This lesson also asks us to examine the meaning of consciousness. In ordinary life, consciousness is often scattered across countless temporary concerns. The mind moves from money to comparison, from resentment to entertainment, from fear to ambition, rarely remaining still long enough to recognize the awareness beneath these movements. Spiritual practice gradually changes this condition. Meditation teaches the mind that it does not have to follow every thought. Selfless action weakens the belief that everything exists for personal gain. Devotion turns attention towards something greater than the ego. Study gives language to truths that ordinary habits conceal. Ethical living purifies the inner environment in which awareness functions. Together, these practices change what becomes natural to the mind. A person who remembers the divine only once a year may find that remembrance difficult during crisis. But someone who has quietly returned to sacred awareness every day has created a path within consciousness. Just as walking repeatedly through a field forms a visible trail, repeated spiritual remembrance forms an inward trail. When confusion comes, the mind is more likely to follow the route it knows. This is why Vedic wisdom does not ask us merely to think about death. It asks us to transform the consciousness that will eventually face death. The goal is not to live in fear of the last moment. Fear itself can become another attachment. The goal is to live so truthfully that whenever the final moment comes, slowly or suddenly, the soul is not carrying an entire life built upon denial. Ask yourself honestly, if all external identities disappeared today, what qualities would remain within you? If your possessions, career, appearance, social status, and public praise could no longer define you, what direction would your consciousness naturally take? Would it move toward peace, fear, love, resentment, surrender, or control? The answer is not a sentence spoken for the sake of comfort. It is revealed through daily behavior. If someone insults you, what rises first? If you gain power, how do you treat those who cannot benefit you? If no one is watching, do you remain honest? If a person needs help, does compassion overcome inconvenience? When life refuses your plans, do you collapse into bitterness, or can you act without believing that the universe owes you a particular outcome? These ordinary moments are the workshop of karma. They appear small, yet they continuously shape the traveler who will one day leave the body. The soul does not prepare for death only in temples, ceremonies, or final prayers. It prepares while speaking to family, handling money, responding to anger, fulfilling promises, and deciding what to do with another person's trust. Spiritual destiny is shaped through the sacred hidden inside the ordinary. A person may meditate for an hour, yet spend the rest of the day humiliating others. Another may know few scriptures, but live with patience, honesty, and generosity. This does not make spiritual practice unimportant. It reveals its purpose. Practice must enter character. Knowledge must become conduct. Devotion must become compassion. Otherwise, the ego may simply wear spiritual clothing. At death, the soul cannot carry the appearance of transformation. It carries the transformation that actually occurred. Karma also helps explain why the soul's next destination may not be immediate in the same way for everyone. Some teachings describe temporary experiences in subtle realms where particular karmic results unfold. Others emphasize the soul's movement toward another embodiment. Some speak of ancestral paths, luminous paths, or states shaped by consciousness and spiritual knowledge. These descriptions vary, and no honest narrator should pretend that all Hindu texts present one simple timeline. The essential teaching beneath these variations is more important than constructing an imaginary map. The journey after death corresponds to the soul's inner condition and karmic momentum. For some, powerful earthly attachment may create a period of difficulty in releasing the former life. For others, accumulated merit and spiritual clarity may support a more peaceful transition. Some traditions suggest that particular souls experience the results of their actions before returning to another embodied existence. Others describe liberation for one who has realized the true self and is no longer bound by ignorance and desire. Sudden death does not automatically remove the soul from this larger order. It may affect how the transition begins, but karma and consciousness remain deeper guiding forces. Imagine two travelers unexpectedly forced to leave a city. One has prepared inwardly, knows the road, carries only what is necessary, and trusts the destination. The other has spent life believing the city was permanent, has tied their identity to everything inside it, and refuses to accept that departure is possible. Both leave suddenly, but they do not experience the journey in the same way. The difference is not that one deserves compassion and the other does not. Both deserve compassion. The difference lies in preparation, attachment, and awareness. This preparation remains possible while we are alive. We cannot control when death will come, but we can influence what consciousness is becoming before it arrives. We can resolve conflicts when possible, reduce harmful attachments, fulfill our duties, correct injustice, practice generosity, and remember that the body is precious but temporary. We can also stop treating spiritual life as an emergency service used only when fear appears. If divine remembrance matters at death, it must matter during life. If truth is valuable at the final moment, it must guide our speech today. If detachment is necessary when everything is taken away, we must practice holding things wisely while they are still present. Detachment does not mean abandoning people or refusing joy. It means loving without demanding permanence from what is temporary. It means appreciating the body without mistaking it for the eternal self. It means using possessions without allowing possessions to use our consciousness. It means entering relationships with gratitude rather than ownership. A detached person may grieve deeply because detachment is not emotional numbness. They simply understand that love is not proven by refusing reality. They can say, "I wish you had remained, but I will not turn my love into a chain around your journey." For families grieving a sudden death, this understanding can become a source of strength. You may not know exactly where the soul has gone. You may never receive the final explanation your mind desperately seeks. But you can trust that one unexpected moment did not erase every loving action, prayer, and sincere intention the person cultivated. You can remember their life without defining them entirely by their death. This is important because sudden death often becomes the final identity placed upon a person. People stop speaking about how they lived and speak only about how they died. The accident, illness, or tragedy consumes the entire memory, but the soul's karmic journey is not limited to the most shocking scene witnessed by others. Remember their generosity. Remember what they taught you. Remember the burdens they carried quietly. Remember the ways they tried to change. If they caused harm, do not deny it, but do not reduce their entire existence to one failure. Hold truth and compassion together. You may also carry forward their best qualities. If they fed the poor, continue that service. If they valued education, help someone learn. If they brought peace into the home, protect that peace. If their life contained destructive patterns, honor truth by ending those patterns rather than repeating them in the name of loyalty. In this way, the karma created around a sudden death does not have to become only grief, anger, and fear. The living can create a new response grounded in wisdom. We cannot rewrite the moment the person left, but we can choose what their departure awakens within us. It can awaken resentment toward life, or it can awaken reverence for time. It can make us emotionally absent from those still living, or it can teach us to express love while we have the chance. It can trap us in endless questions, or it can deepen our commitment to living truthfully despite unanswered mysteries. This choice becomes part of our own karma. The departed soul continues according to its path, while the living continue shaping theirs. Grief connects these journeys, but it should not destroy them both. Sacred remembrance allows love to remain without demanding that time move backward. The deeper message of karma is therefore not fear, it is responsibility. You are not powerless before your inner destiny. Every sincere change matters. Every harmful pattern confronted today weakens a chain that might otherwise grow stronger. Every act of forgiveness releases a burden. Every moment of selfless service expands consciousness beyond the ego. Every return to the divine creates an inward direction that death cannot reduce to a possession left behind. Even if your past contains serious mistakes, Vedic wisdom does not require despair. Karma means actions have consequences, but it also means new actions create new direction. Recognition, repentance, repair, discipline, devotion, and transformation matter. You cannot always erase what happened, but you can stop feeding the consciousness that produced it. A person who once lived selfishly may begin serving others. Someone controlled by anger may learn restraint. Someone who caused harm may accept responsibility and devote their remaining life to repair. The past remains part of the journey, but it does not have to remain the only force shaping the future. Spiritual awakening changes the relationship with karma because it changes the one who acts. At the highest level, the Upanishadic vision points beyond the changing personality toward the eternal self, the Atman that is not created by action and cannot be destroyed by death. Yet until this truth is fully realized, consciousness remains identified with the mind, desires, and results of action. Karma continues binding the individual because the individual continues saying, "I am the doer, I am the possessor, I am this temporary identity." Liberation begins when this mistaken identification weakens. This does not remove moral responsibility, it deepens it. When a person recognizes the same sacred reality within other beings, Harming them can no longer be dismissed as unimportant. Compassion becomes natural because separation is no longer believed to be absolute. Selfless action then purifies the mind, while knowledge reveals the self that was never bound in its deepest essence. For a liberated being, death is not a journey forced by unfinished desire. It is the falling away of a body that was never the final identity. But for most souls, karmic impressions and attachments continue creating movement. The destination after sudden death is therefore connected not only to what happened at the end, but to how fully consciousness had awakened from its mistaken identification throughout life. This is the golden truth of the lesson. The soul does not travel merely because the body has died. It travels in the direction consciousness has learned to seek. If consciousness has spent life moving toward possession, it carries the hunger for possession. If it has practiced hatred, it carries the heat of hatred. If it has cultivated compassion, it carries the expansion created by compassion. If it has repeatedly surrendered to divine truth, that surrender becomes an inner light when familiar forms disappear. Sudden death may close the physical eyes before anyone is ready, but it does not blind the laws guiding the soul. Karma does not forget. Consciousness does not become meaningless. Divine order does not collapse because the departure was unexpected. The body's final moment may be sudden, but the soul's direction has been forming for years, and perhaps, according to the doctrine of rebirth, across far more than one lifetime. Therefore, do not wait for old age to prepare your consciousness. Do not wait for illness to forgive. Do not wait for loss to become grateful. Do not wait for a funeral to speak love. The next action you perform, the next intention you strengthen, and the next attachment you release are already becoming part of the traveler you will one day be. Live so that your mind knows the path toward truth before darkness arrives. Live so that compassion is not an occasional performance, but a natural response. Live so that if the body must suddenly fall silent, the deepest movement of your consciousness is not toward fear and possession, but toward surrender, wisdom, and the eternal reality that death cannot destroy. Yet one profound mystery remains. If karma and consciousness guide the soul, can the prayers and sacred rites performed by the living truly help someone who departed suddenly? Can love reach beyond the boundary of the body, or must every soul face its journey entirely alone? In the next lesson, we will uncover why Vedic traditions place such importance on prayer, remembrance, sacred rites, and the peaceful release of the departed soul. Lesson 6. Sacred prayers and final rites can help the soul move forward. My beloved soul, when someone dies suddenly, the family is often left with a painful feeling of helplessness. There was no final conversation, no time to prepare, no chance to offer comfort, and perhaps no opportunity for the dying person to consciously remember the divine. The living stand beside an empty body asking, "Is there anything we can still do?" Can our prayers reach the one who has departed? Can sacred rites bring peace to a soul whose earthly journey ended without warning? Vedic and later Hindu traditions answer with a message of responsibility and hope. Death ends our physical relationship with a person, but it does not make sincere love, prayer, remembrance, and dharmic action meaningless. The departed soul must continue according to its own karma and consciousness. No ritual can erase every consequence of an entire lifetime, and no human being can purchase liberation on behalf of another. Yet sacred rites can create an atmosphere of peace, help loosen earthly attachments, honor the duties owed to the deceased, and guide the hearts of the living away from panic and towards spiritual surrender. The purpose of these rites is not to command the soul. Their purpose is to help the transition unfold with dignity, clarity, and love. When death comes gradually, a person may recognize what is happening. They may speak final words, ask forgiveness, receive prayers, remember the divine, and gradually withdraw from worldly concerns. Sudden death removes that visible preparation. One moment, the person is participating in earthly life. The next, the physical instrument through which they spoke, touched, and acted, is no longer functioning. The family experiences shock, but according to some spiritual traditions, the departed consciousness may also carry the momentum of that sudden interruption. The subtle mind may still hold powerful impressions of the body, family, home, duties, and final event. Sacred prayers offered with calmness can therefore express a spiritually important message. Your physical life has ended, but you have not been abandoned. Release your fear. Release this body. Release what you can no longer control. May the divine guide you forward. These words are not magical commands. Their power comes from the consciousness with which they are offered. If a family gathers only in terror, screams the person's name, refuses to accept the death, and desperately begs the soul to return, that emotional atmosphere expresses attachment. The grief is understandable, and no grieving person should be judged for crying or losing control. Sudden loss can break even the strongest heart. But as the first shock begins to settle, spiritual wisdom encourages the family to transform their grief into prayer. Instead of saying, "Do not leave us," they gradually learn to say, "You are loved, but you may continue." Instead of saying, "Come back at any cost," they say, "May you move toward peace." Instead of holding the departed through fear, they hold them through sacred remembrance. This transition in the hearts of the living is one of the deepest purposes of the final rites. In many Hindu traditions, the body is treated with reverence because it served as the soul's vehicle throughout earthly life. Through that body, the person learned, loved, suffered, served, created karma, and fulfilled responsibilities. The body may no longer contain the living consciousness, yet it should not be treated carelessly. Washing, preparing, carrying, and respectfully returning it to the elements acknowledge both its sacred service and its impermanence. The funeral fire carries profound symbolism. Fire does not destroy the eternal soul. It transforms the physical form and makes the reality of separation unmistakable. The family can no longer imagine that the departed person will awaken and resume their former life. The form through which they were known is returned to nature. This is painful, but it can also be spiritually clarifying. Throughout life, we treat the body as though it were the entire person. We recognize someone by their face, voice, gestures, and physical presence. When death comes, especially without warning, the mind struggles to separate the beloved soul from the body lying before it. The final rites teach through action what philosophy teaches through words. The body was precious, but it was never permanent. The person's eternal essence cannot be contained within the form that has now become silent. Fire also represents purification and passage. In Vedic tradition, Agni is associated with carrying offerings and connecting the visible with the unseen. When the body is offered to the fire, the act symbolizes the completion of its earthly purpose and the return of its elements to the greater order of nature. The body was borrowed from earth, water, fire, air, and space. Death begins the process through which those elements are released. But the soul is not burned with the body. The Atman cannot be cut by weapons, consumed by fire, soaked by water, or dried by wind. The physical form changes, but the eternal principle of consciousness is beyond material destruction. This is why cremation should not be interpreted as an act against the departed. Within the tradition, it is an acknowledgement that the soul no longer belongs to the body and must not be held there through confusion. For someone who died suddenly, this symbolic release may feel especially important to the family. Their minds witnessed no gradual farewell, so the rite becomes the farewell they were denied. It gives form to an experience that otherwise feels impossible to understand, yet the outer ritual alone is not enough. A ceremony can be performed perfectly while the heart remains filled with pride, conflict, greed, or social competition. Families sometimes become so concerned with appearances that they forget the soul whose journey they gathered to honor. They argue about money, property, status, or who performed which duty. In doing so, they allow the funeral to become another stage for the ego. The true offering is not extravagance, it is sincerity. A simple prayer offered with compassion may carry greater spiritual meaning than an elaborate ceremony performed for praise. A small act of charity, done quietly in the departed person's memory, may honor them more deeply than a public display intended to impress the community. Sacred rites receive their inner power from devotion, duty, truth, and surrender, not from expense. No grieving family should be frightened into believing that the soul will be condemned because they could not afford an elaborate ritual. Divine order is not controlled by wealth. Karma cannot be bribed, and moksha cannot be purchased. The poorest person can pray with a pure heart. The wealthiest person cannot replace sincerity with gold. This understanding protects grieving families from those who might exploit their fear. When death comes suddenly, people are emotionally vulnerable. They may agree to anything if told it will rescue the soul they love. But genuine spiritual wisdom does not manipulate grief. It does not claim that one missed action will permanently destroy the departed person's future. It guides the family toward appropriate duties while reminding them that the soul remains within a law far greater than human fear. Different Hindu communities perform different rites and follow different timelines. Customs vary according to family tradition, region, lineage, and spiritual school. No single description represents every Hindu belief. Yet beneath these differences lies a shared intention: to acknowledge death, honor the departed, purify the emotional atmosphere, fulfill dharma, and encourage the soul's onward movement. The days following death are often treated as a period of transition. The family may offer prayers, water, food symbolically, mantras, remembrance, charity, or other rites connected with their tradition. These acts are not based on the belief that the physical body still eats or drinks. They express care for the continuing journey and gradually transform the departed person's place within the family's consciousness. Before death, the person was addressed as a physically present member of the household. After death, they must slowly be remembered as an ancestor, a departed loved one, and a soul continuing beyond visible life. Ritual helps the mind cross that painful distance. Without such a process, the family may remain frozen at the moment of death. The room may be preserved exactly as it was. Possessions may become untouchable. Every conversation may return to the final event. The person's entire life may be reduced to the tragedy of their departure. Sacred remembrance creates another possibility. It allows the family to say, "We will remember how you lived, not only how you died. We will honor the love you gave, the lessons you taught, and the goodness you placed within us. We will not allow one terrible moment to erase the meaning of your entire life." This is especially healing after sudden death, because shock often becomes stronger than memory. The mind repeatedly sees the accident, the hospital, the final phone call, or the body. It forgets years of laughter, service, sacrifice, and ordinary love. Prayer gathers these broken memories and places them within a larger spiritual vision. The person was more than their final moment. Their soul was traveling long before the tragedy occurred, and it continues traveling after the physical event has passed. Prayers may therefore include gratitude as well as requests for peace. The family can remember the person's virtues, forgive their human weaknesses, and release unresolved pain. If the relationship contained conflict, death does not require the living to pretend that no harm occurred. True spiritual remembrance is not dishonesty. A person can acknowledge the pain they experienced while refusing to carry hatred forever. They may pray, "What happened between us cannot now be changed, but I will no longer feed it with anger. I release you from my demand that the past become different, and I release myself from the prison of endless resentment." Such forgiveness does not declare harmful actions acceptable. It prevents those actions from continuing to control the living after the person is gone. Sometimes the departed person may have caused deep suffering. Their family may feel guilty because they cannot remember them only with love. Spiritual teachings should never force someone to romanticize abuse, betrayal, or cruelty. The living are allowed to protect themselves, tell the truth, and refuse to continue destructive patterns. In such cases, the prayer may be simple. May this soul encounter the truth of its actions. May whatever was dark be purified. May the cycle of harm end here. That is also a form of sacred release. In other situations, the survivors carry guilt over their own behavior. They remember an argument that occurred shortly before the death. They regret a harsh sentence, a missed call, or an apology they plan to offer later. Because the person died suddenly, there is no opportunity to speak face to face. The guilt then becomes an invisible conversation, repeated every day. Prayer allows that conversation to be completed within consciousness. The living may sit quietly, speak honestly, and say everything they were unable to say while the person was physically present. They may ask forgiveness, express love, admit their mistakes, and make a sincere commitment to change. They cannot force an answer from the departed, and they should not invent supernatural responses. But the act of honest confession can transform guilt into responsibility. If you regret failing to show love, show more love to those still with you. If you regret speaking with cruelty, discipline your speech from this day forward. If you regret ignoring someone's suffering, become more attentive to the suffering around you. If you owe a debt that can be repaid, repay it. If the deceased valued a righteous cause, support it with sincerity. This is how remorse becomes dharma rather than lifelong self-punishment. Good actions performed in memory of the departed can give grief a sacred direction. Feeding the hungry, helping a student, supporting a struggling family, caring for an animal, planting trees, assisting the sick, or protecting someone vulnerable can allow the person's memory to continue producing compassion in the world. These actions should not be treated as a commercial exchange in which one good deed automatically cancels one karmic consequence. The spiritual relationship is more subtle. The living cannot simply transfer moral responsibility like money between accounts. But an act performed with pure remembrance creates goodness, purifies the heart of the one performing it, and allows love for the departed to become service rather than despair. It says, because you lived, something compassionate will now happen. What more meaningful memorial could there be? A stone may carry a person's name, but a compassionate action carries their memory into another living heart. The same principle applies to family responsibilities. Sudden death often leaves practical duties unfinished. There may be debts, promises, dependents, documents, property disputes, or people who relied on the deceased. Completing these responsibilities, where possible, can become part of honoring the departed. If a known debt can be paid from their estate, the family should not ignore it while spending money on appearances. If someone was wrongfully deprived of property, justice should not be buried with the dead. If children or vulnerable relatives were under the deceased person's care, protecting them may become a sacred obligation. Dharma is not fulfilled through prayer alone when action is still possible. A family cannot recite sacred words for peace while fighting over inheritance with dishonesty. They cannot publicly praise the deceased while privately abandoning those the person was responsible for. The truth of remembrance is revealed by what the living do after the ceremony ends. However, completing rightful duties does not mean fulfilling every desire the departed person once expressed. Some desires may have been harmful, unjust, or rooted in control. The family must use wisdom. Honoring the dead does not require obeying an unhealthy demand forever. Dharma is greater than personal attachment. Complete what was righteous. Correct what was unjust, release what should not continue. This balance protects both the soul's memory and the lives of those who remain. Sacred sound also holds an important place in prayers for the departed. Mantras, names of the divine, scriptural recitations, and peaceful chanting can steady a grieving mind that has been shattered by shock. Repetition gives the breath a rhythm when emotion feels uncontrollable. It gathers scattered attention and turns it toward a reality greater than death. The sound does not need to become loud or dramatic. Its deepest power may be found in calm sincerity. When sacred remembrance fills a home, it changes how grief is carried. The death is no longer surrounded only by panic, accusation, and despair. It is placed within an atmosphere of surrender. The family acknowledges, "We do not understand everything that has happened, but we entrust this soul to the divine order that existed before our understanding and will remain after it." This surrender is not emotional weakness. It is the recognition that love cannot control every destiny. Human love often says, "Remain with me because I need you." Sacred love gradually learns to say, "May you go where truth leads you, even though my heart aches because I cannot follow." That is one of the most difficult forms of love. The prayers of the living may also help by reducing the emotional chains created through their own attachment. If a departed soul is symbolically drawn toward the family's suffering, then peaceful release removes one reason to remain turned toward earthly life. Even if we speak only psychologically, the value remains profound. The family stops building its identity around refusing the death. They continue loving without allowing grief to destroy every living relationship. Parents who lose a child may feel that smiling again would be betrayal. A husband or wife may believe that rebuilding life means forgetting. Children may feel guilty for experiencing happiness after a parent's death. But sacred remembrance teaches that moving forward is not the same as leaving love behind. The departed person's place changes. It does not need to be erased. You can remember someone while still living. You can grieve and still accept joy. You can honor the past without refusing the future. You can carry love without carrying permanent despair. Indeed, if the departed person loved you sincerely, would they want your entire life to become a funeral? Would they want every remaining relationship neglected and every opportunity rejected because they had to leave? Pure love does not ask the beloved to stop living. Allowing yourself to heal can therefore become part of releasing the soul. This does not happen according to a fixed timetable. Spiritual teachings should never be used to rush grief. Some people regain stability quickly. Others require months or years. Sudden death can create trauma beyond ordinary sadness. Prayer can help, but seeking emotional or professional support does not represent a failure of faith. The mind and nervous system may need care, just as the spiritual heart needs remembrance. Wisdom uses every righteous means of healing. No ritual should be used to silence a person who needs to speak about the death. No teaching about the immortality of the soul should be used to tell someone, "You should not cry." Even those who believe deeply that the soul continues may still experience unbearable human absence. Knowledge does not make love painless. When a person's chair remains empty, philosophy does not fill it. When their voice is gone, sacred teachings do not pretend that nothing has changed. The purpose of spiritual knowledge is not to deny grief, but to prevent grief from becoming the belief that existence itself has become meaningless. You may cry while still trusting that the soul continues. You may feel broken while still offering a prayer. You may ask questions while still practicing surrender. Faith and pain can exist within the same heart. The Vedic vision offers comfort by placing personal loss within a much larger cycle. Bodies appear and disappear, relationships form and change, and souls move through conditions shaped by karma and consciousness. We meet one another for a limited time, exchange lessons, create bonds, and eventually separate in physical form. This does not make relationships unimportant. Their temporary nature makes them sacred. A flower is not meaningless because it does not bloom forever. Its beauty becomes more precious because its season is brief. In the same way, the people we love should not be taken for granted simply because the soul is eternal. The form in which we know them now will not remain forever. Sudden death forces this truth upon us before we are ready. Sacred rites then help us bow before that truth without being destroyed by it. The prayers offered after death are also lessons for those who remain alive. Every mantra reminds us that our own body is temporary. Every flame reminds us that our possessions will one day belong to someone else. Every offering reminds us that only what has transformed consciousness has enduring spiritual value. We gather to pray for the dead, but the ceremony is also speaking to the living. It asks, what are you doing with the life still breathing inside you? Are you postponing forgiveness? Are you building your identity around possessions that death will remove? Are you refusing to express love because pride feels safer? Are you waiting for old age before seeking truth? Are you assuming that your final departure will arrive with a warning? The person who died suddenly has already crossed the boundary we spend our lives pretending is far away. Their silence can teach what their voice may never have been able to teach. Time is not promised. Therefore, the greatest rite we can perform in remembrance of the dead may be the transformation of how we live. If their departure awakens compassion, their memory is serving Dharma. If it ends a family conflict, their absence has produced reconciliation. If it teaches someone to stop wasting life in hatred, their death has awakened spiritual urgency. If it inspires daily remembrance of the divine, their journey has illuminated the path of another soul. This does not justify the tragedy or remove the pain. It means that pain is not given complete authority over the future. The living can choose what grows from the ground broken open by loss. Will bitterness grow there, or wisdom? Will fear grow there, or reverence? Will the family be divided by property, or united through remembrance? Will the person's final moment become a source of endless darkness, or will their entire life become a lamp guiding those who remain? This choice belongs to the living, and it becomes part of their own karma. It is also important to resist obsession with signs from the departed. After sudden death, family members may desperately search for evidence that the person is nearby. A dream, flickering light, familiar scent, unusual bird, or unexplained sound may become emotionally significant. Some spiritual traditions allow that certain experiences may carry meaning, but no one should turn every coincidence into certainty. The grieving mind naturally searches for connection. A peaceful dream may bring comfort. Receive that comfort with gratitude, but do not build your entire spiritual life around demanding more signs. Do not attempt to call the soul back repeatedly. Do not allow fear or curiosity to replace prayer. The purpose of sacred remembrance is to support release, not to create a new form of attachment. If a dream inspires you to forgive, pray, or live more consciously, take the wisdom it offers. If an experience fills you with terror or obsession, return to grounded spiritual practice and seek wise guidance. The soul's journey should not become entertainment for the living. Love does not require constant supernatural proof. Sometimes silence itself is the final teaching. The person's path has moved beyond the range of our physical senses, and we must learn to love without possessing complete knowledge. The family may never know exactly what the departed soul experienced after sudden death. They may never learn whether there was confusion, immediate peace, a subtle transition, or movement toward another state. Vedic traditions give principles, symbols, and sacred practices, but the precise journey remains deeply personal. Humility is therefore essential. We pray because love calls us to pray, not because we have mapped the unseen world. We perform rites because Dharma calls us to honor the transition, not because we control the soul's destination. We give charity because compassion is righteous, not because we believe the universe can be bribed. We release the departed because love must eventually become freedom, not because grief has disappeared. This is the correct spirit of sacred action. Suppose the person died without remembering the divine. The family may fear that this single circumstance has doomed them, but the absence of a visible final prayer does not prove the absence of every sacred impression within consciousness. Perhaps they remembered the divine quietly throughout their life. Perhaps they performed acts of kindness that no one noticed. Perhaps a final inward movement occurred that no witness could see. The heart's deepest turning is not always spoken aloud. Even if the person lived imperfectly, as nearly everyone does, their journey remains within the operation of karma, learning, and divine order. The family should pray with hope, not make declarations of either condemnation or guaranteed liberation. Both claims exceed ordinary human knowledge. Say instead, may whatever goodness this soul cultivated become a light upon its path. May every harmful attachment be weakened. May every lesson that must be learned lead toward greater awareness. May fear dissolve. May truth guide the journey. May the divine presence, which was never absent, now be recognized. Such a prayer does not deny karma. It asks that karma become a path toward awakening rather than endless ignorance. The deepest Vedic teaching reminds us that beneath all changing states remains the eternal self. The departed soul may still carry karma, desires, and subtle impressions, but its ultimate nature is not limited to those coverings. Just as the sun remains present behind clouds, the self remains untouched beneath the movements of mind and destiny. Sacred rites honor the journey of the individual soul, while spiritual knowledge points beyond the journey toward the reality that was never born and can never die. This is why prayer contains both compassion and wisdom. Compassion recognizes the possible confusion, attachment, and suffering of the departing consciousness. Wisdom recognizes that the eternal self was never destroyed. Compassion says, may this soul find peace. Wisdom says, its deepest nature has never been separate from the eternal. Between these two truths, the grieving heart slowly learns to breathe again. If you have lost someone suddenly, you do not need to know every detail of the unseen world to offer them something meaningful. Sit quietly, remember them honestly, speak their name with love rather than panic. Offer a prayer according to your tradition. Perform an act of goodness without seeking praise. Fulfill any righteous duty they left behind. Ask forgiveness where necessary, and forgive what you are able to release. Then say within your heart, your body has returned to the elements, but the love and lessons you placed within us remain. I will not call you backward through my fear. I will not reduce your entire existence to the moment you died. May every pure action of your life become light. May every burden be purified through truth. May every attachment that prevents your journey be released. May the divine guide you toward the destination appropriate for your consciousness, karma, and highest awakening. Go forward in peace. You are remembered, but you are free. This is not forgetting. This is love transformed into blessing. A person who truly releases the departed may still cry years later. Release does not erase memory. It removes the demand that reality reverse itself. The heart no longer says, you must return so I can live. It says, because you cannot return in this form, I will carry the best of what you gave me and continue the life that remains. In this way, sacred rites do more than help the family survive a funeral. They teach the art of surrender. They show us that we are caretakers, not permanent owners, of the people we love. They remind us that every relationship is entrusted to us for a limited season. They teach us to express gratitude before loss forces us to recognize value. They reveal that the final act of love may not be holding on, but opening the hand. Karma guides the soul. Consciousness gives it direction. Divine law holds the greater journey. Yet the prayers of the living still matter because love offered without possession is never spiritually empty. It purifies the home, steadies the grieving mind, fulfills sacred duty, and sends the departed forward surrounded not by desperate demands, but by peace. Sudden death may deny the family a final goodbye, but sacred remembrance allows them to create a different kind of farewell, one not spoken beside a living body, but offered across the silence between visible and invisible existence. And perhaps that farewell contains the words every soul must eventually hear. You have completed your time with us. We bless what was good. We forgive what was imperfect. We release what cannot continue. May you move forward without fear. But after the prayers have been offered, the rites completed, and the earthly attachments gradually loosened, one final question remains. Can a soul that dies suddenly still reach liberation, or does an unexpected death force it to return through another birth? In the seventh and final lesson, we will uncover the greatest truth of all. Sudden death may interrupt a lifetime, but it cannot close the soul's path toward moksha. Lesson 7. Sudden death cannot close the soul's path toward moksha. My beloved soul, we have now arrived at the most important question of this entire journey. If someone dies suddenly, without preparation, without final prayers, without completing their duties, and without consciously saying goodbye, has the door to moksha been closed to them? Must that soul remain trapped between worlds, or return immediately through another birth because its final moment was unexpected? The deepest Vedic answer is filled not with fear, but with hope. Sudden death may interrupt the plans of a human life, but it cannot destroy the eternal possibility of liberation. Moksha does not belong only to those who die peacefully in sacred places. It is not reserved only for those whose families perform flawless ceremonies, whose final words are spiritual, or whose deaths arrive after years of visible preparation. Moksha is freedom from ignorance, ego, attachment, and the cycle of compulsive rebirth. It depends upon the awakening of consciousness, not merely upon the outward circumstances through which the body stops breathing. The body may die in a temple, a hospital, a home, a battlefield, or beside an empty road. These locations describe where the physical journey ended. They do not, by themselves, reveal how near or far the soul stands from liberation. One person may die peacefully while remaining inwardly bound by pride, greed, and unfinished desire. Another may die suddenly after living with extraordinary compassion, devotion, wisdom, and surrender. The world may consider the first death spiritually beautiful and the second spiritually tragic, yet the inner truth may be very different. Human beings see the final scene. Divine law sees the entire journey. This is why sudden death must never be treated as automatic spiritual punishment. The manner in which someone dies is not a reliable measurement of the purity of their soul. A violent accident does not make the victim spiritually violent. An unexpected illness does not prove the person lacked divine grace. A person who dies before completing a sacred ritual has not necessarily been abandoned by the sacred reality toward which that ritual was pointing. The eternal self is greater than the event that ended the body. The Bhagavad Gita declares that the true self is never born and never dies. It does not come into existence at one moment and disappear at another. When the body is destroyed, the self is not destroyed. This teaching does not deny the pain of death. It reveals that death does not reach the deepest center of what we are. The body can be broken, the breath can stop, the heart can become silent. The personality known by family and friends can disappear from physical sight. But the Atman, the eternal reality beneath all temporary identities, is not wounded by the event that wounds the body. This distinction is essential. If we believe the body is the entire person, sudden death appears to be complete destruction. It seems that one random moment has defeated the whole purpose of life. But if the body is understood as a temporary instrument through which consciousness experiences karma, relationship, duty, and growth, then death becomes a change in the field of experience rather than the destruction of existence itself. A musician may lose an instrument, yet music as a possibility has not been destroyed. A traveler may lose a garment, yet the traveler is not the garment. A flame may leave one lamp, yet fire itself is not limited to that single container. In the same way, the soul is not reduced to the condition of the body it has left behind. Sudden death may shock the subtle consciousness. It may leave powerful attachments unresolved. It may create a difficult beginning to the transition, according to some traditions. But difficulty is not the same as permanent condemnation. Confusion is not the same as eternal imprisonment. An interrupted lifetime is not the same as a destroyed spiritual journey. The soul has traveled through more than one visible moment. If the doctrine of rebirth is accepted, the soul's present life is one chapter within a much larger story. The tendencies, lessons, desires, virtues, and limitations appearing in this life did not necessarily begin with this body. In the same way, whatever remains unfinished at death does not vanish into meaninglessness. It may continue as karmic momentum, find expression through another condition, or become part of the soul's gradual movement toward awakening. A sudden death can end a chapter in the middle of a sentence, but it cannot burn the entire book of consciousness. The next page may not be visible to those still living. We may not know whether the soul first experiences a subtle realm, moves toward another birth, undergoes a period of purification, or reaches a condition beyond ordinary understanding. Hindu traditions offer different descriptions, and no honest person should pretend that every scripture or spiritual school gives one identical map. Yet beneath those differences remains a powerful agreement. Consciousness continues according to its condition, karma retains its meaning, and liberation remains the highest possibility. Moksha is not simply a reward given after enough good behavior. It is awakening from the ignorance that makes the soul identify entirely with the temporary body, restless mind, personal desires, and separate ego. It is freedom from the false belief that the changing personality is the whole self. As long as the individual consciousness remains bound by the sense of I am this body, these possessions, these memories, and these desires, it remains caught within fear and attachment. It seeks completion through temporary forms, suffers when those forms change, and creates further karma through its attempts to protect and satisfy the separate self. Liberation begins when this mistaken identity is seen through. The person realizes, not merely as an idea, but as living truth, that the awareness witnessing the body and mind is deeper than either. The body changes from childhood to old age. Thoughts arise and disappear. Emotions come and go. Relationships, titles, possessions, and circumstances transform. Yet beneath these movements remains the witnessing consciousness through which every change is known. The Upanishadic sages turned toward this witness and asked, who is the knower behind every experience? What remains when all temporary identities are removed? What is that reality which cannot be made greater by praise or smaller by loss? Their answer points toward the Atman, the innermost self, which is not separate from Brahman, the limitless reality underlying all existence. When this truth is fully realized, the fear of death begins to dissolve, because the person no longer believes that the disappearance of one form is the disappearance of being itself. The wave recognizes that it is water. The clay pot may break, but the space within it was never truly separated from the space surrounding it. Moksha is this freedom from false separation. Sudden death cannot destroy the eternal self, because the self was never created by the birth of the body. But whether the individual soul is free from the cycle of rebirth depends upon the depth of its realization, the exhaustion of binding karma, the release of desire, and, according to devotional traditions, the transforming power of divine grace and surrender. This is where the teaching becomes subtle. It would be comforting to say that every soul immediately reaches moksha after death, regardless of consciousness. It would also be frightening to say that sudden death automatically prevents liberation. Both statements are oversimplifications. Vedic wisdom asks us to remain between false certainty and hopeless fear. Not every departed soul is necessarily liberated simply because it has left the body. Death removes the physical form, but it does not automatically remove ignorance. A person may spend life saying, I am not merely the body, yet remain completely controlled by bodily desire, social approval, jealousy, anger, and fear. Intellectual knowledge alone does not dissolve every chain. If removing the body automatically produced liberation, every death would end samsara. There would be no need for spiritual realization, ethical purification, devotion, or wisdom. The soul would become free simply by dying. But the teachings describe rebirth precisely because the subtle causes of bondage may continue beyond the destruction of the physical form. The body is one layer of limitation, but attachment to individuality can remain within the subtle mind. The soul may still carry desire. It may still carry fear. It may still carry the impressions of pleasure and pain. It may still identify with memory, relationship, ambition, regret, or unfinished purpose. Death removes the physical house, but it does not always remove the longing to live inside another house. Desire then becomes a force pulling consciousness toward further experience. Imagine someone who spends life believing that fulfillment will come only after acquiring one particular possession, achieving one title, defeating one enemy, or receiving love from one person. If death suddenly removes the body before that desire is fulfilled, the desire does not necessarily become wise merely because its physical instrument is gone. Its object may no longer be reachable in the former way, but the hunger can remain as an impression. That hunger contributes to further movement. This is one meaning behind rebirth. Consciousness is drawn again toward conditions through which its unresolved tendencies can be expressed, experienced, exhausted, or transformed. But rebirth should not be imagined only as punishment. Another birth can also be another opportunity. A student who does not complete a lesson is not necessarily hated by the teacher. The lesson remains because understanding has not yet been reached. In the same way, when consciousness remains bound by ignorance and desire, continued experience may become the field in which further awakening occurs. The soul may return to learn what power could not teach it, what suffering had not yet revealed, what love had not yet purified, or what knowledge had not yet become. A difficult life is not automatically evidence of spiritual failure, and a comfortable life is not automatically evidence of advancement. The circumstances of rebirth, according to karmic thought, are part of a vast and complex order beyond simplistic judgment. What matters is how consciousness responds within the circumstances it encounters. Can fear become courage? Can pain become compassion? Can knowledge become humility? Can love become freedom instead of possession? Can action become service rather than ego? Every life contains doors through which awakening may enter. Therefore, if a person dies suddenly while still carrying unresolved karma, their path may continue. That continuation does not mean the soul has been permanently defeated. It means its education has not ended. Moksha remains possible because the soul's deepest nature remains untouched even when its awareness of that nature is covered. Consider the sun hidden behind heavy clouds. From the ground, there may be no visible light. A person could mistakenly say, "The sun has disappeared." But the clouds have not destroyed the sun. They have only prevented it from being seen. Ignorance, karma, attachment, fear, and desire are like those clouds. They conceal the light of the self without altering its eternal nature. Spiritual practice does not manufacture the self. It removes what prevents its recognition. Meditation quiets the restless movements that keep consciousness absorbed in thought. Ethical living purifies the mind of guilt, cruelty, and deception. Selfless action weakens the ego's demand to own every result. Devotion softens the illusion of separation by turning love toward the divine. Sacred knowledge reveals that the witness of experience is not the temporary personality. Surrender releases the belief that life must obey personal desire before peace is possible. Different paths may emphasize different practices, but their highest purpose is the same: to awaken consciousness from identification with what changes and reveal its unity with what is eternal. A soul that dies suddenly may already have traveled far along this inward path, even if others did not recognize it. Spiritual depth is not always publicly visible. The world notices rituals, clothing, titles, and words. It may not see the silent victories through which attachment was weakened. It may not know how often someone forgave when revenge was possible, served when praise was absent, remained honest when deception would have been rewarded, or remembered the divine while suffering alone. A person may have received no spiritual title, yet their heart may have become humble. Another may speak brilliantly about liberation while remaining deeply attached to recognition. The world measures appearance. The journey of consciousness is measured through transformation. Therefore, no human observer can look at a sudden death and declare, "This soul could not reach liberation." We do not know the depth of realization hidden inside the departed. We do not know the spiritual impressions carried from previous lives. We do not know the sincerity of their private prayers, the goodness no one witnessed, or the surrender that may have arisen within their final consciousness. Even the last moment is not always visible from the outside. A person may appear unconscious, while an inward process unfolds beyond the reach of ordinary observation. Another may speak sacred words aloud while inwardly resisting surrender. Physical witnesses cannot fully measure consciousness. This is why humility must remain at the center of every teaching about death. We can speak about principles. We cannot claim complete knowledge of one soul's destination. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that the state remembered at death has a powerful relationship with what follows. Yet, as we discovered earlier, the final state is not best understood as one accidental thought that mechanically determines eternity. The final movement of consciousness is usually connected to what the person repeatedly cultivated throughout life. When a river has flowed eastward for many years, its final movement near the ocean is not random. It carries the direction formed through its entire course. Likewise, a consciousness trained in devotion may naturally turn toward the divine even if death arrives unexpectedly. The lips may not have time to speak a sacred name, yet the inner direction can remain. A person who has surrendered their life repeatedly does not lose every impression of surrender merely because the final event happened quickly. The sacred path practiced during life becomes an unseen companion at death. This is why daily remembrance matters more than waiting for a dramatic final moment. No one can guarantee they will have time to prepare while dying. The body may not allow speech. The mind may be affected by illness, injury, medication, or unconsciousness. If liberation depended solely upon the ability to perform one visible act in the final second, spiritual destiny would become unfairly dependent upon physical circumstance. The deeper teaching is more compassionate and more demanding. Become now what you hope to remember then. If you want your consciousness to turn toward peace at death, practice peace while living. If you want to remember the divine at death, remember the divine during ordinary days. If you want to release the body without terror, loosen your false identity with it while it is still healthy. If you want freedom from possession, practice generosity before everything is taken away. If you want to leave without unbearable regret, speak truth, repair harm, and express love while time remains. The final moment is prepared through thousands of unnoticed moments. Every morning, the direction is being formed. Every response to anger is forming it. Every temptation resisted is forming it. Every act of compassion is forming it. Every attachment consciously released is forming it. Every time the ego is placed beneath truth, the inward path becomes clearer. Sudden death teaches us that preparation cannot be postponed until the body gives a warning. Yet preparation for death does not mean living with constant fear. It means living with spiritual clarity. A person obsessed with death may become unable to appreciate life. That is not liberation. True awareness of impermanence makes life more precious, not less. When you know a flower will not remain forever, you look at it more carefully. When you know a conversation may not be repeated, you listen more deeply. When you know the people you love are temporary companions in their present forms, you stop wasting so much time protecting pride. Awareness of death should make love more sincere, duty more urgent, and gratitude more natural. It should not turn existence into a waiting room for the grave. The Vedic path does not reject life. It teaches us to live without mistaking life's temporary forms for permanent ownership. Enjoy what comes without becoming enslaved by it. Love people without turning them into possessions. Care for the body without believing it is the whole self. Pursue righteous goals without allowing success to define your worth. Serve your family without demanding that every relationship remain unchanged forever. This is detachment, not indifference, but freedom within love. A detached person can love intensely because fear of loss no longer forces them to control the beloved. They understand that every soul has its own journey. They care, protect, and remain loyal, yet they do not claim ownership over another being's destiny. When death comes suddenly, this form of love becomes the ability to bless the departed without demanding their return. For the grieving family, this may be the hardest spiritual act they will ever perform. The mind says, if I release them, I am abandoning them. The heart says, if I stop suffering, perhaps I did not truly love them. But spiritual wisdom answers, release is not abandonment, and healing is not betrayal. If a bird must continue its journey, opening your hand does not prove that you never loved it. Sometimes the open hand is the purest evidence of love. You may continue remembering the departed for the rest of your life. You may speak their name, perform charity in their memory, carry their lessons, and feel their absence during important moments. None of this prevents release. Release means you no longer ask their soul to remain trapped inside your refusal to accept what has happened. You say, I wish your body had remained, but I will not make my wish more important than your journey. You say, I will carry love, but I will not turn love into a chain. You say, may the path toward truth remain open before you, whether it leads through healing, another birth, a higher realm, deeper realization, or final liberation. Such prayer is powerful because it does not pretend to control the unseen. It combines hope with humility. The family may ask, can our prayers give the soul moksha? No human being can force another soul into liberation through personal desire alone. Moksha is not a worldly object that one person can hand to another. The soul's consciousness, karma, realization, and relationship with divine grace remain part of its own journey. Yet prayer is not meaningless. Prayer can create peace where panic was growing. It can loosen emotional attachment. It can turn grief into surrender. It can invoke compassion, clarity, and divine guidance. It can help the living fulfill their duty with sincerity. It can prevent the departed person's memory from becoming surrounded only by anger, fear, and despair. Prayer does not control liberation. It offers love in the direction of liberation. Imagine someone standing outside a dark room. You cannot force them to open their eyes, but you can light a lamp. You cannot walk the entire path for them, but you can refuse to fill the path with additional darkness. Sacred remembrance becomes such a lamp. The rites performed for the departed become meaningful when they arise from truth rather than terror. The family acknowledges the death, returns the body to the elements, offers prayers, completes rightful duties, performs compassionate acts, and gradually releases the soul from the identity it held within the household. They stop speaking inwardly, as if the person must resume their former role. The mother is no longer asked to return and protect everyone. The father is no longer asked to continue carrying every responsibility. The child is no longer called backward because the parents cannot imagine living with an empty room. The husband or wife is no longer made responsible for the survivor's entire future. The family begins to say, your earthly duty in this form has ended. We will now carry what belongs to us. This is a profound act of dharma. Sometimes grief becomes heavy because the living continue asking the departed to perform a role they can no longer perform. They repeatedly say, who will guide me now? Who will protect me? Who will make this decision? Who will hold this family together? These questions are natural, but the answers must gradually return responsibility to the living. The departed person's love may continue as memory, influence, and inner strength, but their physical responsibilities must be accepted by those who remain. When the living begin fulfilling those duties with courage, the soul is honored through maturity rather than held through helplessness. The father's wisdom continues through children who act wisely. The mother's compassion continues through a family that cares for one another. The teacher's knowledge continues through students who share what they learned. The friend's loyalty continues when those left behind refuse to abandon others in their pain. This is how a departed life continues, creating dharma without being pulled backward into the former identity. There is another fear often connected with sudden death, the fear that the soul must become a wandering spirit forever. Stories, cultural beliefs, and dramatic traditions sometimes create the impression that every person who dies unexpectedly remains trapped near the place of death. But no responsible spiritual teaching should present this as an automatic fate. Some traditions describe states of confusion or attachment that may occur after certain deaths. Powerful desires, shock, or refusal to release earthly identity may affect the transition. Yet these possibilities should not become universal judgments. Not every sudden death creates the same experience. Not every departed consciousness remains near the body. Not every unusual dream is evidence of a trapped soul. Not every family misfortune proves that the dead are restless. Fear can make the living interpret every sound, coincidence, illness, or disagreement as a supernatural message. This obsession does not honor the departed. It may deepen anxiety and prevent healthy grief. If the family is concerned, the wise response is not panic. It is peaceful prayer, appropriate rites according to tradition, righteous action, and grounded spiritual guidance. The departed soul should not become an object of frightening imagination. Say, whatever confusion may exist, may clarity arise. Whatever attachment remains, may it loosen. Whatever journey must continue, may it continue under divine guidance. Then allow the soul space to move. The soul is greater than the story of how it died. This truth must be repeated because sudden death often imprisons the person's memory inside the final event. If someone died in an accident, people may speak only about the accident. If they died through violence, the violence becomes the entire identity. If they died by an unexpected illness, every memory becomes attached to the hospital. But the soul did not begin existing inside that final scene. It lived through thousands of mournings, conversations, sacrifices, failures, hopes, and acts of love. It carried dreams, fears, lessons, and spiritual possibilities long before the moment of death. Remember the entire person. Remember the child they once were. Remember the burdens they carried. Remember the ways they tried to become better. Remember the goodness that appeared naturally through them. Remember their mistakes honestly, but do not reduce them to those mistakes. Truth does not require worshipping the departed as perfect, and compassion does not require condemning them as permanently lost. A human life is more complicated than either judgment. This is especially important when someone died while still struggling with harmful habits. The family may wonder, they were trying to change, but they did not succeed completely. Does their unfinished struggle mean they failed spiritually? No sincere struggle toward truth is meaningless. A person who repeatedly falls while genuinely attempting to rise is not inwardly identical to someone who celebrates remaining in darkness. The struggle itself may represent a change in consciousness. Recognition, remorse, effort, and the desire to repair harm become part of the soul's direction. The final victory may not have occurred visibly, but the movement toward victory still matters. Imagine two people controlled by anger. One believes anger is strength and refuses to question it. The other recognizes the suffering it creates, seeks forgiveness, practices restraint, and slowly becomes less controlled by it. Both may still fail at times, but they are not traveling in the same inward direction. One feeds the chain, the other is learning how to break it. Sudden death may interrupt the second person before the transformation is complete, but it does not erase every step already taken. Karma includes direction as well as consequence. A seed that has begun opening beneath the soil has not yet become a tree, yet something real has already changed. Spiritual growth can remain invisible in the same way. This gives hope to anyone grieving a person who died imperfectly, which means nearly everyone. Do not imagine that liberation belongs only to those who achieved a flawless personality. Human life contains contradiction. Even sincere seekers experience fear, attachment, frustration, and error. The question is not whether the person performed perfection for the world. The question is whether ignorance was weakening, love was becoming purer, and consciousness was turning toward truth. Devotional traditions add another dimension: divine grace. Grace should not be misunderstood as permission to live carelessly while expecting the divine to erase every consequence. Genuine devotion changes the heart. If someone claims surrender but deliberately continues harming others without remorse, the words of surrender have not yet entered their character. But grace means liberation is not merely the ego's private achievement. The limited individual does not conquer infinity through pride. The heart opens, surrenders, receives guidance, and recognizes that the divine presence was never absent. Devotion burns the illusion that the soul stands alone and must save itself through personal power. For the bhakta, the final refuge is not control but trust. The devotee says, "I have acted, struggled, failed, learned, and offered what I can. Now I place the results at the feet of the divine." A person who lived with such surrender may carry that relationship even through a sudden death. The body may be unable to complete a final prayer, but the life itself may have become a prayer. This is a beautiful truth. Sometimes the final sacred word is not spoken in the last breath because it was already being spoken through years of compassionate living. Every act of service said it. Every temptation resisted said it. Every moment of humility said it. Every time the person trusted truth more than ego, the prayer was spoken. The final silence does not cancel the devotion that came before it. The path of knowledge offers another understanding. If someone has directly realized the self beyond body and mind, then death cannot create bondage where ignorance has been destroyed. The body's departure is like the falling of a dry leaf from a tree. The realized being does not become the dying form because they no longer mistake that form for their ultimate identity. For such a consciousness, sudden and gradual death are outward distinctions. A lamp may go out slowly as its oil is exhausted, or a wind may extinguish it in a moment. The manner in which the flame disappears does not change the nature of the space surrounding it. Likewise, if identity has dissolved into the recognition of Brahman, the unexpected ending of the body cannot recreate the ignorance that has been overcome. Yet we should be careful when declaring someone liberated. Spiritual realization is not easily measured from outside. It is better to honor the possibility with humility than to turn liberation into a title awarded through emotion. The path of selfless action also prepares consciousness for freedom. A person who performs duty without selfish attachment gradually weakens the sense of personal ownership. They learn to act fully while surrendering the result. This is difficult because the ego wants certainty. It says, "I will serve only if I am appreciated. I will love only if I am loved in return. I will act honestly only if honesty brings success. I will pray only if life obeys my request." Karma Yoga teaches another way. Perform the righteous action because it is righteous, then release the result you cannot control. Such practice prepares the soul for death, because death is the ultimate result we cannot control. A person who has spent life surrendering smaller results may be better prepared to surrender the body itself. They have learned repeatedly, the action is mine to offer, but the final outcome does not belong to my ego. If death comes suddenly, this inner discipline does not become useless. It has already shaped consciousness. The path of meditation also prepares the soul by revealing that thoughts are events within awareness, not the whole identity. Fear may arise, but the witness is deeper than fear. Pain may arise, but awareness is not identical to pain. The body may change, but the knower of change is not itself one of the changing objects. Through long practice, consciousness becomes less easily swept away by every mental wave. This does not mean a meditator will feel no fear during a sudden crisis. The nervous system may react instantly. The body is designed to protect itself. A moment of fear does not prove spiritual failure. What matters is the deeper identification beneath that reaction. A wave may disturb the surface of the ocean without changing its depth. The final physical response may contain shock, yet the deepest consciousness may remain connected with surrender, awareness, or divine remembrance. Again, the outer appearance cannot reveal the whole truth. This protects us from another harmful belief, that a person who appeared afraid while dying must have received a dark destination. Fear is a natural response of the body. Even spiritually mature people may experience pain, confusion, or survival instinct. Liberation does not require the nervous system to perform a peaceful scene for witnesses. What matters is not whether the body showed fear, but whether consciousness was ultimately bound by ignorance. One difficult second cannot be separated from the entire life that prepared it. Suppose a compassionate mother dies while desperately trying to protect her child. Her final consciousness may contain fear, but that fear is inseparable from love. Suppose a person dies attempting to save a stranger. Their final moment may be physically violent, yet their action arose from selflessness. Suppose someone dies during sleep without consciously remembering anything. The absence of visible awareness does not allow us to declare the absence of all spiritual merit. Divine truth is not fooled by appearances, and it is not limited by human observation. The soul's next movement belongs to a field of intelligence greater than our ability to judge. This should bring comfort, but it should also awaken responsibility. Because sudden death does not automatically prevent moksha, we should not despair over those who have departed unexpectedly. But because death does not automatically create moksha, we should not become careless while living. The teaching stands between these two errors. Do not condemn the dead. Do not waste the living opportunity. Your body is breathing now. Your mind can still examine itself. Your voice can still ask forgiveness. Your hands can still serve. Your habits can still be changed. Your attachments can still be understood. You can still choose what kind of consciousness you are strengthening. This moment is the sacred ground of preparation. Do not say, "I will become spiritual when life becomes quiet." Life may never become quiet. Do not say, "I will repair the relationship when the other person changes." Death may arrive before either of you changes. Do not say, "I will remember the divine when I am old." Old age is not promised. Do not say, "I will release greed after I become successful." Greed may grow stronger with every achievement. Do not say, "I will begin living truthfully after this one final deception." One deception becomes the teacher of the next. Every postponement strengthens the person you will eventually be when control is removed. The greatest preparation for death is not predicting its date. It is removing the reasons consciousness must fear truth. If you have harmed someone, make repair where possible. If you have taken what was not yours, return it. If pride has prevented an apology, allow humility to speak. If attachment has become control, learn to love without possession. If your identity depends entirely upon wealth, status, or admiration, begin discovering the self that remains when those things disappear. If spiritual practice has become only an appearance, bring it back into your conduct. Let knowledge become kindness. Let prayer become surrender. Let meditation become awareness in ordinary conflict. Let devotion become compassion toward other beings. Let remembrance of death become reverence for life. This is the path upon which moksha stops being a distant idea and begins changing how you live. Liberation is not only a subject discussed after someone dies. It is the freedom practiced while alive, whenever the ego loosens its control. Each time you forgive, without denying truth, a chain weakens. Each time you act without demanding praise, a chain weakens. Each time you observe desire without becoming its servant, a chain weakens. Each time you recognize the same sacred reality within another being, separation weakens. Each time you surrender a result you cannot control, fear weakens. Moksha may be the complete ending of bondage, but its light can be experienced in every moment of genuine freedom. A person controlled by resentment lives inside a prison even while the body is alive. The moment they release the need for revenge, part of that prison disappears. A person controlled by approval is reborn psychologically every day through the opinions of others. The moment they become rooted in truth, a layer of bondage falls away. A person controlled by possession is continually afraid of loss. The moment gratitude replaces ownership, consciousness becomes lighter. These smaller liberations prepare the soul for the greatest release. Then, when death comes, whether slowly or suddenly, it does not confront a consciousness that has never practiced letting go. The soul recognizes the movement because surrender has already become familiar. For the family grieving a sudden death, this lesson carries a message that must enter the deepest part of the heart. You do not need to believe that your loved one's spiritual destiny was destroyed by one unexpected event. Their final journey is held within the totality of their consciousness, karma, growth, devotion, and divine order. The words they could not say are not the only truth. The ritual they could not complete is not the only truth. The fear that may have appeared is not the only truth. The unfinished duty is not the only truth. Their entire life traveled with them. Every pure intention traveled. Every lesson learned traveled. Every act of love shaped the traveler. Every attachment also mattered, but no single unfinished part allows you to calculate the final destination. Pray, therefore, without despair. Do not pray as though you must rescue the soul from a universe that has forgotten it. Pray as though you are placing the person within the care of a reality wiser than your grief. Say, may the goodness within this soul become light. May every unresolved burden lead toward learning. May every attachment be purified. May fear dissolve into clarity. May the path toward the divine remain open. If another birth is necessary, may it become a field of awakening. If higher understanding is near, may every obstacle fall away. If liberation has ripened, may the soul enter freedom beyond return. This prayer does not demand one outcome from a mystery we cannot see. It offers the highest blessing possible. Even if the soul must return through another birth, do not interpret that return as abandonment. The same divine reality exists there. Another body does not place the soul outside sacred presence. Another life may provide the circumstances through which old tendencies are purified. Deeper love is learned, and the final truth becomes recognizable. The journey may continue, but the destination of awakening remains possible. No birth is completely separate from the eternal. No realm is outside Brahman. No soul can travel beyond the reality that is the ground of its own existence. The tragedy is not that the divine is absent. The tragedy is that consciousness does not recognize the presence in which it already lives. Moksha is the ending of that ignorance. This is why liberation may be described as reaching the highest reality, yet it is also described as recognizing what has always been true. The soul does not travel through physical distance to find the self. It awakens from mistaken identity. A person may search everywhere for a necklace already resting around their neck. Their search can be exhausting, yet the necklace was never truly absent. In the same way, consciousness travels through pleasure, pain, success, failure, birth, death, attachment, and loss, while seeking the wholeness hidden beneath its own mistaken sense of separation. When knowledge finally dawns, the soul realizes that what it sought was the foundation of the seeker itself. This realization ends the desperate movement through which temporary experiences are expected to provide permanent completion. Desire loses its power to force another birth. The ego loses its claim to separate ownership. Fear loses its belief that death can destroy being. The soul recognizes its eternal ground. This is moksha. Can sudden death stop that possibility? No. It can interrupt a career. It can interrupt a conversation. It can interrupt a relationship in its physical form. It can interrupt a plan, ceremony, pilgrimage, promise, or final goodbye. But it cannot change the eternal nature of the self. It cannot remove the spiritual progress already planted within consciousness. It cannot place the soul outside karma, divine order, or the possibility of awakening. It cannot lock the door to liberation forever. The soul may still have lessons to complete. It may still carry attachments that require purification. It may still move through another state or birth. Yet the path remains open because the truth toward which the soul is moving has never ceased to exist. Even darkness cannot destroy light. It can only describe a place where light has not yet been recognized. This is the golden revelation of the seventh lesson. Death does not decide whether the soul is worthy of eternity. The soul is already rooted in the eternal. What must end is the ignorance that prevents it from knowing this. The final purpose of Vedic teaching is not to satisfy curiosity about invisible worlds. It is to awaken the living person who is listening now. You may want to know where the departed soul has gone, but the scriptures quietly turn the question back toward you. Where is your consciousness going while you are still alive? Is it moving toward freedom or deeper attachment? Is it becoming more compassionate or more self-centered? Is knowledge making you humble or proud? Is loss opening your heart or hardening it? Is spiritual practice changing your character or only decorating your identity? Are you preparing to release life by learning how to release the ego? The dead have crossed a boundary you cannot presently follow. Your duty is not to become lost in speculation. Your duty is to use the life that remains. Honor the departed by becoming more truthful. Honor them by ending the hatred they could not end. Honor them by caring for the people they loved. Honor them by correcting harmful family patterns rather than continuing them. Honor them by transforming grief into compassion for others who suffer. Honor them by remembering that your own time is limited. A sudden death can become a spiritual awakening for an entire family if it destroys the illusion that love can always be expressed later. Call the person you have been avoiding. Offer the apology pride has delayed. Sit with your parents while they are still present. Listen to your children before their childhood disappears. Thank the friend whose loyalty you have treated as ordinary. Fulfill the promise you keep postponing. Do not wait beside another funeral to discover the value of someone standing before you today. This is not morbid. It is sacred urgency. The awareness of death can purify love from carelessness. One day, every person you know will disappear from their present form, or you will disappear from theirs. No relationship escapes impermanence. The only question is whether that knowledge will frighten you into emotional withdrawal or awaken you into fuller presence. Choose presence. Love without believing the form is permanent. Serve without believing you own the result. Speak truth without waiting for the perfect moment. Remember the divine without treating remembrance as an emergency. Let every ordinary day become preparation, not preparation rooted in terror, but preparation rooted in awareness. Then death loses some of its power to surprise the soul, even if it surprises the world. The body may not know the hour, but consciousness will know the direction. If death comes during youth, the path remains. If it comes in old age, the path remains. If it comes through illness, the path remains. If it comes during sleep, the path remains. If it comes without farewell, the path remains. If another birth follows, the path remains. If the soul is ready for liberation, the gate cannot be closed by the manner in which the body fell. The eternal does not become less eternal because human plans were unfinished. Therefore, when you remember someone who died suddenly, do not imagine them forever frozen inside the moment that took them away. See the accident as the end of their visible chapter, not the total definition of their soul. Offer the final scene to the divine. Release the questions that have no human answer. Remember the full life. Bless the continuing journey. Trust that every sincere step toward truth still matters. And if your heart asks, "Will I ever meet this soul again?" allow the mystery to remain without turning it into fear. Vedic traditions allow for karmic bonds through which souls may meet again, yet the highest teaching points beyond the need to possess another meeting. If reunion serves the journey, the laws of consciousness are not incapable of creating it. If separation serves awakening, love must become spacious enough to accept it. The goal is not to cling eternally to one relationship in one form. The goal is for love to reveal the unity beneath all forms. In Moksha, separation itself is understood differently. The individual no longer stands apart from the whole, desperately searching for completion through another incomplete identity. The deepest union is not two temporary personalities holding one another forever. It is the realization that the same eternal reality appeared through both. The faces were different, the stories were different, the karma was different, but the light of consciousness came from one limitless source. When this is realized, love does not disappear, it becomes free from fear. You no longer say, "You must belong to me forever." You say, "The sacred reality I loved through you can never be destroyed." This is how grief slowly becomes wisdom. This is how memory becomes prayer. This is how attachment becomes blessing. This is how sudden death, without becoming less painful, can open the living heart toward truths it had postponed for years. The departed soul continues its journey, but you are also standing at a spiritual threshold. You may return to unconscious living after the funeral, or you may allow this loss to awaken a new relationship with time, love, karma, and the eternal self. Do not waste what grief has revealed. Grief has shown you that control is limited. Let that become surrender. Grief has shown you that bodies are temporary. Let that become spiritual inquiry. Grief has shown you that unspoken love becomes regret. Let that become courageous expression. Grief has shown you that possessions cannot stop death. Let that become generosity. Grief has shown you that every soul must eventually travel alone beyond the reach of family. Let that become daily preparation of consciousness. The one who died suddenly may have given you a final teaching without speaking a word. Awaken now, not tomorrow, not after success, not after retirement, not when every problem has disappeared. Awaken while life is unfinished, because life will always be unfinished when death arrives. There will always be another plan, another conversation, another desire, another responsibility, and another reason to delay surrender. Completion cannot mean arranging the outer world so perfectly that nothing remains undone. That day never comes. True completion is inward. It is being able to say, "I acted sincerely with the awareness I had. I repaired what I could. I loved without deliberately withholding love. I sought truth. I served where I was able. I made mistakes, but I did not worship them. I learned, changed, and offered my life to something greater than my ego." Such a person may still leave unfinished tasks, but they do not leave an entirely unexamined consciousness. That is the preparation sudden death cannot take away. My beloved soul, if you are grieving someone whose departure came without warning, place your hand upon your heart and breathe slowly. You do not need to solve the entire mystery tonight. You do not need to know exactly which realm received them. You do not need to punish yourself because you could not create a perfect goodbye. Offer the love you still carry as a blessing. Say within your heart, "You left before I was ready, but I will not believe that your soul was destroyed." You did not have time to complete every word, yet your entire life spoke before your final silence. I release you from the duties you can no longer perform. I forgive what I am able to forgive, and I ask forgiveness for the pain I caused. May every pure intention become light upon your path. May every unresolved attachment be purified through wisdom. If another journey awaits, may it lead toward awakening. If liberation is near, may no fear hold you back. I will remember you with love, but I will not call you backward through my despair. Go forward under the guidance of eternal truth, then remain silent. Do not demand a sign, do not force an answer. Allow the prayer to become surrender. Perhaps tears will come. Let them come. Tears do not close the door to wisdom. They reveal that the heart has loved something it could not keep. But when the tears have passed, rise and live. Live in a way that gives meaning to the love you received. Let your actions become the continuation of what was noble in the departed. Let your transformation become the offering placed upon the invisible altar of memory. Let your own consciousness move closer to freedom because their departure reminded you that time is sacred. Then sudden death will not have the final word. The final word will belong to truth. The final word will belong to awakening. The final word will belong to the eternal self that no accident can wound, no fire can consume, no water can drown, and no grave can imprison. Bodies arrive and depart. Names rise and disappear. Families meet and separate. Desires create worlds. Karma turns the wheel. Souls enter experience, learn through consequence, and continue seeking the source of their own awareness. But beyond every movement remains the unchanging reality. The sages called it Brahman. They recognized it within as Atman. They declared that the deepest self is not a lonely traveler abandoned in a hostile universe. It is rooted in the same limitless consciousness from which all existence arises. To realize this is to become free. Until that realization becomes complete, the soul may continue traveling. But every act of truth, every moment of devotion, every surrender of ego, and every awakening of compassion moves consciousness away from bondage. Sudden death cannot erase those movements. It cannot cancel the soul's deepest possibility. It cannot defeat eternity. The body's story may end without warning, but the soul's path toward moksha remains held within a truth far greater than death. And so, do not look upon sudden death only as a door violently closed. Look deeper. Another door may have opened beyond your sight. You cannot follow the departed through it, but you can stand where you are with prayer instead of panic, love instead of possession, and trust instead of condemnation. Bless the soul, release the body, honor the life, complete your duties, transform your grief, awaken your consciousness. And remember the final golden truth. Death may decide when the body's journey ends, but death does not decide whether the eternal self exists. The self was present before the first breath, remains when the final breath disappears, and waits beyond every illusion to be recognized as the deathless reality it has always been. Sudden death can end a lifetime. It cannot end the soul's journey, and it can never close the path toward moksha. Sudden death may end a body without warning, but it cannot destroy the soul, erase its spiritual progress, or close its path toward moksha. So do not remember the departed only through the moment they died. Remember how they lived. Bless the journey that continues beyond your sight, and release them with love rather than fear. And while you still have breath, do not postpone forgiveness, devotion, or truth. Live today in the consciousness you hope to carry into eternity. If this sacred message brought peace to your heart, subscribe and share it with someone grieving an unexpected loss. The body's story may suddenly end, but the soul's journey continues toward the eternal.